Now, as of now, we have been able to trace the rise of Hitler into becoming the dictator of Germany. So, in this lesson, we would be focusing on what Hitler did when he came to power, his policies, and the principle behind those policies. Now, we have mentioned that when Hitler was in Landsberg jail, he used that time to lay out a proper program or a set of principles of the Nazi party, and which every Nazi party member has to remember and follow. And that would be setting the base behind all the policies of the Nazi state. So before we look at the Nazi policies, it becomes important to look at these very principles which Hitler put forward in his own autobiography, Mein Kampf. So let us start our discussion on the Nazi principles with the first principle, which was autarky. Now, autarky happens to be an economic ideology which believes in self-sufficiency or self-reliance. It's when the political power wants to make the economy of their country closed off and self-reliant, not requiring the help or support of any other nations and not willing to help other nations and their economies as well. Now, Hitler wanted to base the German economy on the lines of autarky. So he therefore wanted to make the economy of Germany self-sufficient, enough on its own. And how did he want to do this? He wanted to do this through land reforms and through industrial progress. And by the way, these industries would not be exporting their goods to any other nations and would only be producing for the consumption and the sustenance of the German nation itself. And therefore, there is no concept of export or import in an autarky. Along with this, there was also no concept of foreign debt or debt payments. Now, if you remember, Germany had a lot of debt because it had borrowed money to pay off the war indemnity which was imposed on it by the Treaty of Versailles. So the concept of autarky, Hitler wanted to make one thing very clear. Germany would not be paying off any money it owes to any other nation, as through autarky, the German currency or the money of Germany was not allowed to flow out of the state. The German money had to stay within the borders of Germany or else it would lose value as far as the autarky of Hitler was concerned. Moving on, the next principle he focused upon was collectivism. Now, we've discussed how Nazism is a corporatist or a collectivist ideology, and that is based out of the principle of collectivism which Hitler enshrined in his Mein Kampf. So what really is collectivism? Hitler wanted to make sure that all the big industries of Germany are under strict state control. They would be allowed to continue under private ownership. So private owners of industries would be allowed. But what is the trade-off? They need to function into a structure set forward by the Nazi state itself. So the Nazi state would be setting all the regulation, the standards, the rules, or any other things concerning the working and functioning of the industries. At the same time, collectivism was also important because it was to take away the right to strike or to disrupt, especially from the workers. So Hitler, through collectivism, wanted a structure where the workers could not strike against the industrial owners or even disrupt the functioning of the industries. Now, how do you think Hitler was able to pass off this as a principle of Nazism when so many workers were supporting Hitler? So you see, Hitler was able to give them the illusion that through this collectivist structure, the workers would not even need to strike against their owners, as the state would take care of everything, and if they have any grievances, the state would address it anyway. They would not require to disrupt the functioning of the industries. And in such a manner, Hitler was able to manipulate the workers on giving up their democratic right to protest or strike, and telling them that it was only for the benefit of the progress of the country and they would not have any other grievances because the state would look into it. The next core principle was that the Nazi state would be totalitarian. Now, we have mentioned that totalitarianism is when all the power of a state is centered into one person, and that one person, by extension of the Nazi party, would be Hitler himself. Now, through totalitarianism, all opposition parties or any forms of opposition would now be banned and they would be suppressed as well. They would be suppressed through all possible means available to the Nazi state when they come to power, such as through the military or through secret police. So therefore, there would be suppression of all opposition parties and all opposition forms of power as well. And at the same time, not only would this be targeted towards the opposition parties, but also against the common public as well, where terror and violence would also be used to ensure civil order. Now again, how were the public okay with this? Well, they felt that this terror and violence would be an effective way of ensuring order, and more order would bring more progress. And therefore, the public was so discontented and aggravated with the current government, who were inefficient and incapable of handling crisis, that they were ready to live under a totalitarian state where terror and violence is used as long as order is maintained and prosperity comes. Another principle which Hitler provided was the Nazi government would be right wing. Now, right wing, or the political right, refers to the conservative spectrum of politics. It is dealing with elements like order, authority, culture, and tradition. And it is also against left or centrist elements like democracy, rights, equality, eradication of all classes. And since the Nazi government upon formation would be a right-wing party and a right-wing government, they would also be against leftist and centrist parties, and therefore they would remove the ideologies of communism and liberalism from the spectrum of the political sphere of Germany. The next principle happens to be dictatorship. Now, dictatorship is very similar to a totalitarian ideology. Now, while totalitarian in this particular context is referring to the state itself, dictatorship is referring to who holds the power. And again, that would be Hitler. So, dictatorship would mean that there would be no more democratic government. So people would not be able to vote any new leaders to power. There would be one person who would hold all power in his hands and who could not be voted out or could not be removed until he dies. So therefore, a dictator would be the new leader of Germany, and that would eventually become Hitler himself. And therefore, this dictatorship would also lead to concentration of all power in one single hand, the hand of the leader, of the dictator himself. The next principle we would be focusing upon is social Darwinism, which reflects the racialist tendencies and ideology of Hitler and the Nazi Party. Now, social Darwinism, as interpreted and provided by Hitler, was the concept where some races are superior to the others, and therefore these superior races, by biological standards as well, should be allowed to rule over the inferior races. And this would mean, in German context, that the Nordic Aryans, who were the master race in the minds of the Nazis, were destined to rule over the inferior races, which soon become targeted towards the Jews. And we will be looking at social Darwinism as a policy of the Nazi state in the lessons to come. The next principle which Hitler provided for in his Mein Kampf was the use of propaganda by the state. Now, to really be able to sell all these principles and to also transform and translate these principles into state policies, Hitler understood that he would require the use of all communication channels, likely radios, newspapers, film and television, which he could therefore use to influence or manipulate the common public into making interpretations or conclusions on their own, which is far from the truth. So what Hitler wanted to do was he wanted to control all means of communication and to use it to target these means of communication for Nazi interest. And Nazi interest, according to Hitler, was more important than truth itself. Now, we have seen the anti-Semitic nature of Europe, and also how Hitler was primarily anti-Semitic in his approach, and he also wanted to put all the blame of the German defeat in the First World War on the shoulder of the Jews. And we also saw how he was using the concept of social Darwinism to properly prove his racialist tendencies. And this brings us to another racialist tendency which he had, which was the targeting of his entire racialist attitude on the Jews, and also how the removal of the Jews from mainstream German society would truly bring back the glory of Germany, and therefore how important it is to remove them from Germany and to also find a final solution to get rid of them for once and for all. What this final solution would become is something we would look look at in the subsequent lessons. The next principle put forward by Hitler was the principle of militant nationalism itself. Now we have seen how militant nationalism was raging in Germany, and therefore Hitler decided to make it a principle of the Nazi Party itself, where he wanted to make Germany a strong military power and to also bear the swastika, the flag of the Nazi Party, the banner of the Nazi Party, all around the world. So what Hitler wanted to do was form a new empire of Germany, a third Reich or the third empire of Germany, where he would be controlling most parts of the world by means of annexations, political expansions, and even conquest. Therefore, proving that his foreign policy would be primarily expansionist and aggressive so that Germany could gain more and more power and lands at the same time. And finally, the principle which he laid upon, which truly became popular, was the principle of revanchism. Now, revanchism is when an ideology is centered around the concept of getting revenge for something. And the revenge which Hitler wanted was the humiliation Germany faced due to the harsh terms imposed upon Germany by the Treaty of Versailles. So what Hitler wanted to do was to undo and dismiss all the terms of the Treaty of Versailles and to also get back everything Germany lost after the First World War, therefore to gain Germany's lost glory back. This truly was a very popular principle of the Nazi Party which Hitler put forward in his Mein Kampf, and this also was instrumental in making the Nazi Party's rise to popularity and fame much more concrete and evident, along with all the other principles through which Hitler was able to convince the public that is the only path to getting the glory of Germany back. Therefore, in this particular lesson, we focused upon all the Nazi principles which Hitler put forward in his autobiography, the Mein Kampf, which truly put forward the ideas he had for a Nazi-controlled Germany. All these principles were justified and backed up by him using many convincing methods so that the public could really understand, and the public are convinced that they need to bring Hitler forward to truly help them plan the future for Germany through his very clear and well laid out program. And this particular program would also go on to become the basis for all Nazi policies. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at deltastep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers, or to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it is rewarding too. So register for free now.